Well, yes, I did. The governor have raised issues that we have been talking about over the years, so there's nothing new from what he said.
I was going to ask you that question, if there was really anything new from what he said today.
No, there isn't. It's just that leadership in Nigeria have refused to do what is right. For instance, they are going to take $1 billion to deal with an insurgency problem that the government claimed to have defeated. Yeah, yet the cleanup of the Niger Delta, starting from Ogoni land, is suffering from funding. The $1 billion they are talking about is excess crude money from the Niger Delta. Why don't we, from that fund, take funds to deal with the cleanup of the Niger Delta? This Modular refinery issue they talked about, there is already illegal refineries that are going on in the region. In fact, 70% of products in Nigeria is coming from the Niger Delta press. I challenge the villa that even the diesel that they use in the villa, if you do a forensic test, you will discover that it is coming from the Niger Delta. Why don't we put these boys in together and practice some mind, just as it is in North, and stop the degradation that is going on in the Niger Delta?
Udengs, you raised a very important point there. I mean, something we haven't talked about in a while, the cleanup of the Niger Delta. I mean, what is Shell's role in all of that? How is it that, finance is still a major issue there?
Well, can we always blame only Shell? The Nigerian government rakes in a lot of funds from the activities that is going on. The Shell and other oil companies are doing their bit. Let Nigerian government complement what the oil companies are doing.
But isn't it the oil companies who, would I call it, who are responsible for the leaks that are supposed to clean it up?
Well, that's what I'm saying now. The oil companies, yes, they carry out their own part of the bargain. But the bulk is lying in the hands of the government. Look, let me tell you, a situation where sabotage, for instance, amounts for a larger percentage of the degradation that is going on. That is supposed to be government duty, because it is the government failing in its responsibility that led the young people to break those pipelines and decide to help themselves. So both parties must work together. The NDDC you are talking about is sustained basically by funding from the oil companies. What about the government's chunk of it? Over 3 trillion is owed NDDC by the federal government.
Away from the money owed, the NDDC, let's talk about the point that was raised by the governor there. He said the NDDC isn't focusing, mostly on the communities. Do you think the projects being executed by NDDC are community-oriented projects, or they just carry out directives from the federal government? Nigeria has a huge problem of corruption and nepotism. Today, even before now, every government that comes in wants to use the NDDC as... And so that is how the culture has been. So if somebody does not win an election somewhere, you use NDDC to settle him. So at the end of the day, you'll be robbing Peter to pay Paul. The politicians that get in there don't actually derive their projects from the people. So we have said times without number that the NDDC model itself is fashioned around the failed Nigerian process. Until we restructure Nigeria, we will not get a headway with NDDC or with whichever intervention agency that you put in place, because the same failed institutions will be the ones that will direct the processes of such organizations. So until we begin to tinker with the governance process of Nigeria, this is how it will affect local governments, state governments, and all that. So that is a different question. The most important thing is, how do we make progress? And if the government has failed in addressing the issues head on, then we must all focus on restructuring our country. By the time we restructure it, then things will begin to fall in. Well, then how about we start from the very small groups first of all? I mean, the federal government, the way we see it sometimes in Nigeria, is way up there, in Abuja. Let's talk about the NDDC that's just right there in the Niger Delta. Now, when the NDDC carries out projects that are not community-oriented, when a community, for instance, needs clean drinking water, and NDDC decides to come to build a bridge, how do you begin to address this, this difference, really, in infrastructure development? How are representatives meeting with NDDC officials or the federal government to correct this anomaly?
Look, NDDC is a subset of Nigeria. You cannot isolate NDDC from Nigeria. The same attitude of selecting leaders based on patronage and all that is what is affecting the NDDC.
So you cannot expect that today Nigeria is complaining about leadership because people just sit down and determine who becomes your governor or your local government.
So are you saying the people have little power, in influencing the projects that the NDDC brings to the Niger Delta region?
Yes,
I mean, it is the Niger Delta Development Commission.
Look, I tell you, that is the situation. If the people have no say in determining what happens in the NDDC or governance in their environment because of the state federal system that we operate. So isolating NDDC and expecting it to function ultimately, it will not work until we check the process. I have told you that NDDC is used to settle politicians. So if it is PDP that is in government, they will appoint all those who are PDP-oriented.
All right, then let's talk about this modular refinery that the governor brought up. I mean, he seems very knowledgeable about this to begin with. And that discussion has been on for a while now. What is the news around modular refineries? Are they engaging people in the Niger Delta more, or do we still have illegal refineries springing up in the swamps?
Look, I don't usually want to stick on modular refineries, because modular refineries, if you go through it, you will find out that it's a very cumbersome process. There is already an industry in the illegal refining that is going on in the region. I told you here that 70% of AGO in Nigeria is coming from the Niger Delta. Therefore, there is an economy. Why don't we look at that and say, how do these people fabricate their modular refineries? They are using locals. That is an industry. Why can't government come together and say, we are setting up a commission for a 5-year term to say, we are going to be working with these people. We give them products from NDDC. We regulate what they are doing. They pay tax. Then gradually we can build their capacity towards modular refining. Because modular refining requires a lot of money. But there's already an existing economy that makes Nigeria lose over $10 billion every year. So why don't we tap into that? Just as in the north, illegal miners in the north have now been put into cooperatives, and government is working with them to save the economy, to gather its revenue, and also keep the young people employed.